Okay, everybody. I want to start out by saying that throughout the 80s, cartoons for people like me were a norm, especially on Saturday mornings in syndication. I can tell you honestly, every time we came into the summer, especially as we got into August and everything, as kids, when you get into August back in the 80s, and even the early 90s, the anticipation level for Saturday morning cartoons, for the new Saturday morning cartoons, were off the charts. I can recall many times that in one night, or in separate Friday nights, either it was one whole Friday night or not, or separate Friday nights, all the networks, CBS, NBC, and ABC at the time, would always be showcasing what they called their Saturday morning preview specials for a half hour. And basically what they would be doing folks, is they would have some of the hosts of well, basically the host, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry for the distraction, I'm just checking on my dog, see what she was doing. And, well, basically some of the hosts at the time were from the primetime channels, the primetime series that they had at the time. And I can remember, you know, they had shows like, they had the cast of like Family Matters, and the cast of Perfect Strangers, and Full House, and, you know, Night Court, I believe, and shows like that, previewing the upcoming Saturday morning lineup. And it was always so unique, because it's like they were continuing off sometimes they would be having the cast almost continue off of an episode they just did, and they were continuing it into the Saturday morning preview, which was cool. And like I said, you know, when we got into August and everything, and into September, the late portion of August, early September, and they started showing these things on Friday nights, it was really the anticipation level, it was, like I said, it was just off the charts. Because we couldn't wait to see these shows the next day, the next morning. Now, there were some shows that I grew up with in the 80s that on Saturday mornings you could only see them then. But I remember them quite well. I remember sometimes getting up on Saturday mornings and just switching around all the network channels, seeing what shows were on, and then if I saw something I liked, I'd stick to it. Like one of them that I remember offhand was Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling. I remember that so clearly. I remember watching episodes of that, and I just could not get enough of it. I just could not get enough of it. It was that good. And then there were other cartoons as well that came on, like Gummy Bears came on, and the Wuzzles, and Beetlejuice came on, and shows like that just throughout the 80s. And you know, there were some shows that we that we can only see throughout on Saturday, like I said, like there were shows like Muppet Babies, for example, really sticks out to me. I think we had Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. We had Defenders of the Earth. All these shows just filled up the Saturday morning lineup. The Berenstein Bears, the 1985 broadcast. Just a lot of good shows. And, you know, and like I said, Saturday mornings were just like the pinnacle of animation. Because you got to realize that during the weekday mornings, all these networks, all they were ever filled up with were talk shows and news segments, and to a kid, that's like boring, you know. And the only cartoons you could watch in the morning were in syndication, and you always had to sometimes get rushed out the door before you could watch them. And that was always the disappointing thing. It was always a disappointing thing. But still, Saturday mornings were always like the pinnacle, because they had so many great shows. They had spin-off cartoons off movies and stuff that you didn't even expect. They had the Ewoks, they had droids, they had shows like Turbo Teen. Dinosaurs, I believe, was a Saturday morning show for a little bit. Kid Video, the Chipmunks, all these shows defined Saturday mornings back in the 80s and early 90s. And it was just an amazing, amazing time to be a kid. Just amazing. All these shows just really stuck out to you as some of the best that you could ever see on television. And to cap it all off, then you had what was known as the story breaks, or the weekend specials on CBS and ABC. Almost simultaneously, they would come on at the same time. And you just saw the fact that they were competing with each other. And the one thing about Saturday mornings, folks, which really made them stick out back in the 80s and early 90s as some of the best in best times in animation, was the fact that at that time every network, ABC, NBC, and CBS, were showcasing cartoons simultaneously from 7 to 11 almost. And that was a great time. It's a great time to be a kid. Nowadays, though, that doesn't really happen much anymore. Nowadays, you barely get like an hour or two of cartoons on CBS and NBC. ABC is mostly all Disney now, and some of that's live action. Excuse me. But it's mostly all this, which really stuck out to people. And made them like, back in the 80s, made them like, this was, you look back on it and it makes you realize that this was the best time to be a kid. I remember, I can remember fondly sometimes, when these shows would air. Some of them would air early in the morning. Some of them would air in the midsection of the morning and then later in the morning. But still, it was just a great time to be a kid. And like I said, it all got capped off by those weekend and specials on ABC and the CBS Story Break specials. They were just phenomenal times. Just phenomenal times. You could not get enough of these shows. You couldn't get enough of them. It's like every year it got better. It got better every year. And sometimes if a show was coming back for a new season, the animation got better. And that was what really made people enjoy Saturday mornings. But all I can say about Saturday mornings back in the 80s and early 90s is it was just a great time to be a kid. But syndication was just as good, if not better.